Hi, it's James Shokum, host of Webcomics Reviews and Interviews. Tonight we're sitting down with Jim Sweeney from the Mike cartoon sports character. So sit back, relax, and let the fest begin.
James, it's good to be on your show. I really appreciate the invitation. I'm excited to talk about what I've created in my sports character and some of the projects that we worked on over the course of the last couple of years, and also share with the audience about where I envision Mike going in the future.
All right. First off, can you describe who Mike really is?
Well, Mike is my creation. He's my alter ego. I felt like I was born with the character. He was coursing through my DNA on my birth date when I came into this world. But Mike is whom we call the ultimate talking head on sports. His real name is Mike Raffone. He's a microphone. That's why we call him the ultimate talking head on sports. He banters quite a bit about sports, primarily football, basketball, baseball, soccer, and hockey. He pontificates quite a bit also because Mike views the world of sports through his own unique lens, and he likes to go off on rants and tangents and talk about how he views the world of sports through his mind. And he's funny, he's witty, he's audacious, he's very smart, and he's got big plans for the future. So if you were to look at Mike, you would see he's just a head. He's a talking head. He wears a bow tie, and he sits on a base, and the base lights up, and it's got his name on it. So he could collapse into his base and roll like a hockey puck or a wheel. You could throw him across the floor, and he could slide like he's a disc. His bow tie can be used as his appendages, where he could fly. He can use them as his arms and his legs. He can do cartwheels. So he's got a really neat, creative way in which he was designed. And where I envision Mike as the creator is not necessarily as a static cartoon, but as an animated cartoon character in short increments, in animated shorts on the web, or even on television in very brief episodic ways where he deals with real life humans, sports stars, celebrities, whatnot.
Cool. First off, have you actually started putting together an actual toy for this guy? Because it sounds like it'd be interesting.
Well, you could say I put together a national tour in that I've published 40 sports comic books that I've written through the voice of Mike. It's different. It's like my own genre. It's not like a regular comic strip. And the comics are all things that Mike narrates and he reports on. So like one of my best-selling comic books, and people they look at me very quizzically when I say this, but I've sold it on Amazon, and I've sold it very well on Amazon, and it's called Mike's Top 10 Spiritual Sports Favorites. And people thinking, man, you going religious on me, or what are you talking about? Spiritual sports favorites. And it's Mike's take on everything having to do with spiritual terms in sports, like Amen Corner, the golf term, Pigeon Heaven, which could be like the worst seating that you have in a baseball stadium. He's written about Reggie White, who was called the Minister of Defense. So they're all different things that Mike sees through his own unique lens that he banters about and pontificates about. Not only does he educate people in the comic books, but he also entertains them. So it's just a very unique way of looking at the world of sports. Then other comic books that Mike has narrated are like his top nicknames in sports, the 25 things he loves best about sports, the 25 things he likes least about sports, the top 10 worst haircuts in sports. So nutty, crazy, left of center, oddball ways in which Mike views the world of sports, he brings them to fruition in his comic books.
Yeah, I mean, there is a definite connection between sports and spirituality, just asking anybody on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. But this has nothing to do with spirituality. This is just the take on spiritual expressions in sports. As I said, like Amen Corner, the Minister of Defense, Pigeon Heaven, things like that are pretty funny. They all have comics with them, as like in the Pigeon Heaven comic, it's a guy with his binoculars applying suntan lotion because he's closer to the sun with a pigeon, taking the dump on him. So that's where Mike is. He plays in that arena, in that realm, where he likes to poke fun at things that are really at the tip of your nose. But Mike even has a book. It's his top 10 favorite sportscasters, and his top 10 favorite sportscasters even include fictional characters like Sam Malone from Cheers fame, or Tank McNamara, who's a legendary sports comics strip. So it's different, it's unique. It's like anything in life. When you start a business, you have to position yourself so that you bring value to people, you entertain, and you differentiate yourself from people that are doing things in the same space. And you have to be unique. And that's where Mike fits in. He's definitely unique.
Yeah, I don't think there's really that many characters that are pretty much a sports announcer. I mean, you see that in occasional sitcoms, that sort of thing, but you don't really see it as the character.
Well, I'll take it one step further. I'll challenge you. I'll challenge anybody that I come across, walking down the street, or your audience, is to name a cartoon sports character that's transcended all sports, that's a global brand. There isn't one. And my goal with Mike is to take him and transform him from a static, comic strip or comic book platform to being, an animated character where he's a cartoon character. And I believe I've created what could eventually be like the SpongeBob or the Bart Simpson of sports, because the only sports cartoon characters really that you ever see out there, and a lot of people don't even know his name. It's Cletus, the Fox football robot. If you ever watched NFL football on a Sunday, you see this transformer, gray and blue robot, that crashes onto the screen during commercials of NFL Fox football. And that character's name is Cletus. But, Fox has even admitted, David Hill, who was the former CEO of Fox Sports, says one of the things we never did was really bring Cletus more fully to life by having him speak. And where I see my character, Mike, is somebody that could be on a major sports network, whether it's ESPN or Fox or Turner or NBC, that interacts with the audience, that can also interact with real live humans, where you have Mike as a pop-up at the bottom of your screen, making some kind of comment or bantering with, say, if it's NFL, Fox football, like with Howie Long or one of the other, sports announcers that I have on the screen at the same time. And, just bringing an added entertainment element to the conversation.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting, especially given all the stuff we're starting to see with augmented reality and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the other ways I see Mike coming to fruition as a comic character, or really an animated cartoon character, is I've written several dozen scripts. They're audio scripts. At first, I introduced them as brief podcasts. All they were 90-second to like 2.5 minute long audio blurbs of, I called it Mike on Sports. And it was the crazy ways in which Mike views certain things that are happening in the sports world. Now, all those audio things, they were obviously professionally recorded, and they could be transferred into animated shorts, which I've done on several of them. And I published them, put them out there. People loved them. They thought that they were really entertaining. They were very witty, but they looked at things through Mike's lens, through Mike's vision, through Mike's point of view. And they were sports expressions that have always been out there that people know, but Mike looks at them in a different way. Like one in particular was like the crazy games that we play that we never report on. And it was all about foosball, it was about stickball, it was about tabletop tennis where you use matches. And it's just crazy ways that Mike looked at sports and how he can report on games. And Mike has his own studio, like an ESPN studio or a Fox or an NBC studio, where he sits on his desk and he's got screens behind them, like big screen TVs. And I put different comics that we pay somebody to draw, and we populate them in those screens, several of them behind Mike, and that helps Mike tell his story. Because you're not just looking at Mike, you're also looking at the screens behind him as he's telling the story.
Cool. Have you thought about trying that with Alexis Briefs or Bixby?
No, I haven't. Maybe that's something I need to take a look at. I haven't. I've just been going down the path that I embarked upon, several years ago. It's been working. But my goal right now is to try and sign a licensing deal with somebody that could utilize Mike and the character that I've created. Whether it's a major sports site, whether it's a sports network, or even a brand that's looking for an animated character to help make the brand that much more attractive. Because a number of people over the years have told me that your Mike character could be like a Geico gecko or an Aflac duck. And people equate, Geico insurance advertising with the gecko and the Aflac advertising with the duck. And that's because, both of those characters, it's really entertainment where they drop in, the branding message. And the same thing could apply when it comes to Mike.
Yeah, and in fact, those characters tend to be the most effective when they're actually almost ignoring the product they're trying to sell to a certain degree.
Yeah. But, the one thing that I've also learned is that people love animated characters, and they, even if they get mad at an animated character for saying something or, doing something, they can't stay angry at the character, for too long, because they realize it's an animated character designed to make you smile and to make you laugh. But my guy, I love him. Sure, it is my alter ego. I felt like I was born with the idea many, many years ago. And, we specifically designed Mike in a certain way where he's got, medium blue eyes, and the eyes are bigger. And the medium blue color, with the research that we had done, is that it just, connoted, trustworthiness and empathy. And even Mike, you can see his tongue, you can see his teeth when he speaks, so that it's not like, South Park is a hugely successful, animated series, but their animation is not character emotive. Mike's animation is character emotive. Whenever he moves, whenever he says something, if he jumps on the desk, if he spins around on his desk, his entire body moves, and all of his facial expressions, they change. So that makes a richer, deeper connection, we believe, with the audience that's watching Mike in action.
I know you just had something just getting. So how much success have you had on Amazon?
Well, I've got 25 books that I'm selling on Amazon and have been for the last several years. We get a quarterly, royalty payment from Amazon. I wish it were more, but it's not. I only sell the books for 99 cents, and they're content rich with lots of drawings. So my percentage of my royalty is not necessarily that great, but the whole drive and motivation and impetus behind getting those books out there is that in each and every one of the books, I do have embedded in them, because they're ebooks, is affiliate links to those companies that, people that buy the books can potentially buy something from. And then I earn a commission if they do purchase something. In addition, the purpose of the books is to get the Mike branding message out there so people, can see Mike. Of a book, my books are normally 90 to 100 pages long, and there are, several dozen impressions of Mike in the book. So if somebody, downloads the book, reads the book, they're going to see Mike, several dozen times. And that just continually reinforces, the Mike message for me.
Have you got any, where else have you marketed? And besides, I mean, obviously Amazon and a couple other booksellers have got these. Have you gotten like a YouTube channel or a Facebook page?
Yeah, I did, but I felt that Amazon was definitely the way to go. And I didn't want to put the cart before the horse in the animation, because my goal is, sure, Mike is a comic. Sure, I sell comic books, make money on the comic books. Sure, I've had success there. But the real success and the motivation is for Mike to be a talking head as an international icon, as the trademark sports character that I've created him. So if I started by getting a YouTube channel out there, that would be at cross purposes of what I want to really accomplish, and that's to partner with a major corporation that has the wherewithal, the distribution, and some of the other support mechanisms that I would need to make Mike, the international global brand that I want him to become one day.
That's actually sort of why I was suggesting YouTube, is because have you ever watched a show called Mystery Science Theater 3000?
No, but I'm writing that down now. Mystery
Science Theater 3000.
No, I've never heard of that. Thank you for sharing it with me. And why do you think it would be in my best interest to watch it?
Behind Mystery Science Theater 3K is pretty simple. You just watch it. Remember when you watch those really bad movies and you throw out a lot of really interesting, fun comments at the movie because it was just so horrible?
Yeah.
Well, they basically do this as a show. And I know it's on Netflix right now, but it's also been had its own movie. It's had its own YouTube thing, and it's started off in basically a public access type situation. And it's just one of those shows that's managed to accrue a certain cult following over the years, because it's just they have a whole lot of fun just making fun of the really horrible movies we all sort of love and hate.
Yeah. I'm going to take a look at it. Thank you for sharing that with me.
The reason I brought it up was because when we start looking at the YouTube presenters, we basically, at least I tend to think more in terms of the gaming channels. People who do the playthroughs for, all the various different types of game, like Final Fantasy, pretty much everything, even Doom. And then while they're doing it, there's a lot of they're just having fun commenting on what they're finding, what they're doing, all that sort of thing. But I emphasize that's a gaming channel.
Yeah, I'm not a gamer, and Mike wouldn't be a fit for a gaming channel, I don't think.
Interesting to see what would happen if you were to do something similar. If you were to take some of the bigger games, like say the Super Bowl or anything happening in March Madness, or even the big soccer matches, and actually have a little bit of fun playing with Mike in that realm.
Huh. Okay.
Actually have him as an actual sports announcer of sorts for the game, and just have him just simply riff on the game.
I could do that just sitting in front of my television because I do that naturally. That's it just emanates out of me without any kind of provocation. And I am Mike. I am the voice of Mike. I'm the, obviously the creator of Mike and the guy that puts together all the content.
I'm seeing if you could possibly use something to be sort of mixing, having actually a character on the actual screen while he's actually riffing would be sort of interesting to watch.
Yeah, the challenge there is, what do you do with the rights? If it's a screen, if it's on the screen and it's FIFA or NBA or NCAA, I really can't take that and put it on YouTube. I get shut down right away.
That would be something worth looking into.
Uh-huh.
Great. Now I've got a question for a lawyer now.
Yeah, there you go.
So, anyway, yes, this part of the show, keep in mind, is we tend to do a lot of weird marketing things. We sort of have to. So, comics, you gotta love them.
Yeah, absolutely do. I've always had an affinity for comics. I've always loved humor, wit, satire. I'm all over it. I'm all about it, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really great stuff on the website itself.
Well, thank you.
I'll do a quick free plug of www.theemike.
The Mike, TheeMike.com, TH2EsMike.com, as in the long-awaited microphone messiah, poised to save America from its own self-induced sports coma. So that's my guy, The Mike.
Right. Basically, what's leading you that is you've got a lot of really interesting stuff there. I mean, you've got links to all your books, all the comics.
Yes. Yeah, and the people that there's the books that I have on the website, almost all of them I give away for free. I sell 25 on Amazon, but I have shorter books that I give away for free on the website. And, Mike's top 10, people love that, like top 10 sports icons of Chicago, top 10 sports icons of Boston, of Philly, of LA, and of New York. And each and every one of the books has got its own designated chapter about one sports icon that has its own unique comic. And like one of the best comics, the best responses that I ever got on one of the comics is the Sultan of Swing. And if you're a baseball fan, if you're a historian, Babe Ruth was called the Sultan of Swing. And there's a picture of a chubby, very cheeky, Babe Ruth in his pinstripe Yankee uniform, and he's got like a sultan's turban that he's wearing while holding and in his stance batting lefty. And it's just very simple. Sometimes, comics, they could say the most when they really don't have when that much content in the comic. It's just a simple, straightforward comic that captures the moment perfectly. And the Sultan of Swing with Babe Ruth is one of the best. I didn't draw it. I can't draw a stick figure. So all of the comics, that I do have, and I have a library of hundreds of them, maybe almost 1,000 now. And we hired somebody on a work for hire agreement to bring all the things that I envisioned that I wanted to incorporate in my Mike books in a work for hire agreement with an artist up in Massachusetts.
Yeah, that definitely comes through in the comics. I mean, they're basically one-panel things that pretty much describe exactly what a fan would think of a particular term.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I've got things, sports cliches that I bring to life. I've got people. I've got nicknames. I got a book on nicknames, top 25 nicknames in sports. And one of my favorite nicknames, and this guy, Alex Salzberg, I'll give him a plug, from Massachusetts. He absolutely killed it, and it was Scarface. There's one of the best soccer players over the course of the last 10 years. His name is Frank Ribéry, and he's from Marseille, France. He plays with Bayer Leverkusen in the German league, and they call him Scarface because he actually has a scar on his face when he was knifed as a kid. And Alex brought to life a profile of Frank Ribéry with a black and white iconic photo that Al Pacino made famous in the Scarface movie. And really simply done, but great contrast of colors, just really sharp. And I'm really proud of that one. I thought Alex did a great job.
Yeah, this is definitely something for the fans. I mean, there's a lot of comics that you have to know exactly what you're talking about in order to get the punchline.
Yes. That's why it's for sports. And, most people that are soccer fans are going to buy the soccer book. And if they're international, it's like you can see in Amazon where the purchases come in, and the soccer books were primarily purchased by people overseas. But those people wouldn't be buying my NFL football comics because they don't have the NFL in Europe.
True. I mean, I can see rugby fans doing it, but definitely not something you see, widely used.
Yes. And I wouldn't do like rugby and some sports I stay away from, because what I've done, I've tried to approach this through from the standpoint of it being a business, where predominant amount of the comics I've done have been American football, followed by baseball, then followed by basketball, then international football or soccer, then hockey, because I looked at the pie chart that the sports resource companies put together as to how much the American sports public views football versus the other major sports. And football far and away is number one, followed by baseball, then basketball, then soccer, and it's like hockey is only 2.5%. But I do have plenty of hockey stuff because I personally like hockey.
Obviously, you're not going to be having a whole lot of curling jokes.
You know something? I did a curling comic. Well, I shouldn't say I envisioned the comic, and Alex Salzberg brought it to fruition. That is my number one hate mail that I've ever gotten in my entire career with Mike, and Mike reporting on curling, because I've done a blog on it, and I did about a 2-minute episode that on the Mike podcast when I had it, that I want to bring to life through animation. And it was two teams facing off curling, and I got more people, and all I tried to do was to lampoon it, and I wasn't disparaging, but I was trying to make a little bit of levity out of it. I got more hate mail, but it goes to show you that divisiveness sells. And when I posted that blog, I can't believe the responses I got on it. I
can't, but then again, I'm used to seeing a lot of weird stuff happen in terms of characters you think are going to be really great tend to go over about as well as a lead balloon, and you've got characters that you are so quirky you know they shouldn't be out there more than like a couple of episodes or issues, and those tend to be the fan favorites after a while. So just look at Miles Morales if you ever get a chance in the comics. But but it's sort of neat that you actually went through and actually crunched the numbers to determine which comics you'd have to be most interested in.
Yeah, well, that information is pretty easily available if you know where to look for it, and it just breaks down the annual pie chart of what percentage of fans tune in and use their purchasing power to buy things by sport. And that's how I shouldn't say that's how that's how I based how much money I would spend on certain comics.
Definitely. I mean, it's not a bad way to do it.
Yeah, and I'll do the same thing when I have to spend time on the animation, because the animation is really expensive. And I wouldn't want to spend a predominant amount of money on hockey, knowing that those dollars would be better served being utilized towards basketball, baseball, and American football, type of animated shorts.
Yeah, I can definitely see why that would. I mean, again, hockey's is a pretty popular sport, and again, you've got that same, vitriol-fueled fandom going. I mean, let's get real. Hockey is not a game you want to basically sit back and just think about.
Yeah, exactly. But the stuff I wrote on, like the comics that I did for hockey that were really popular, and maybe it's because I just happened to tap into a vein of which people weren't looking to poke fun at certain things having to do with hockey. Sure, I did, a comic on a lot of the great players like the Gordie Howes and the Wayne Gretzky's and Mario Lemieux. But the two most popular comics that I did, and I even did podcasts on them, were the Blue Line and hockey. And Mike, as I said, he likes to go on rants and pontificate. And it was all about who the heck decided to paint the blue line blue in hockey. Why is he discriminating against, people that like the color green or red or wherever? And he just goes on and on and on. And the other one that I wrote, it was a comic, and then we did a whole blog on it that did very well, was the Zamboni driver. And he was, a driver of the baddest to the bone, vehicle in sports. So people like that because it was just a different way of looking at something that everybody's seen, but no one's really, seen it that way or looked at it or that, through that lens that Mike has. So that's how I try and differentiate things.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting to see a full-length animated thing with Mike going on.
Yeah, I can send that to you. I'd be happy to. But this was great.
Right. Oh. I mean, it basically, well, again, it'd be interesting to see any other kind of merchandise you play with Mike, or just the comic books.
Just the comic books. That's it. And then if there's any other merchandise, if you get one of the comic books and you click on a link in a chapter that I write, say about LeBron James, and it happens to direct you to the NBA store, and you buy a LeBron James jersey, then full disclosure in the books, I actually make a commission on that jersey that you buy as a result of obviously clicking on the link that started in my book.
Well, I was looking more at things that would be obviously doing things like Mike T-shirts, that sort of thing is actually more what I was looking at.
We tried that. It was not really an avenue that we wanted to follow because I'm thinking that we sign a deal, licensing deal, and that stuff blows up overnight in a good way.
Well, I'm looking at it, you would actually do pretty well on some of the more interesting T-shirt sites like T-Furry, Teespring. But it's just, they tend to look for weird, quirky stuff on those sites anyway, so.
Okay. I'm going to go take a look at those things. I looked at Teespring before, but not T-Furry.
So, admittedly, I'm a big fan of Zazzle, but that's me. I can get away with a lot more weirdness on Zazzle than I can anywhere else. But it's just, this is a character who definitely looks like he has some definite marketing potential.
Oh yeah, without doubt. I think he's got the great marketing potential once he comes to life as an animated short, because that's where his personality flourishes, because he's nutty, he's witty, he's very quick, he's condescending, he's self-deprecating, and then his character and his personality will flourish if you see him as an animated cartoon instead of a static comic.
So, yeah, this definitely has some interesting potential here.
Well, thank you.
So when it comes to Amazon, going to Amazon, but again, comic books. What kind of advertising you do for the books, or is it pretty much just a website?
It's the website, and periodically I put out some Facebook posts. I'll push some stuff out on LinkedIn. Believe it or not, I get good responses from LinkedIn, and it's because they allow you to blog. And I've got thousands of followers or connections on LinkedIn, and I'm a member of probably 20 different sports groups. So when I publish a blog, I say this is my character that I ghostwrite the blog through. People find it. I mean, people like it. They comment on it. That as far as spending money on the advertising, no, I don't. Not a dime. I've never spent a dime on it. I go to sports conferences. I spend money there in order to get into the conferences to look for potential partners that could potentially license our character. But no, I won't spend money on the advertising. I don't feel I need to.
It'd be interesting to see. You basically pretty much do PDFs. Do you do any actual printed books?
No, but that's on slate for the rest of this year, the second part of this year. I'm currently writing on a book now that I want to finish. It's not Mike related. It has to do with my volunteer gig in sports. And once I get done with that, then my first book is going to be a combination of 2 Mike ebooks, and it's going to be Mike's top 25, the best things he likes about sports. And then on the flip side, it'll be the top 25 things that he likes least about sports. And the ones the least about sports, I know people will like, because it'll be flopping, in soccer. It'll be spitting in baseball. It'll be just silly, stupid stuff, that happens in sports that people see, but nobody really writes about. So I draft a comic that tries to capture it, like this no spitting in baseball. That's funny. It's just about Mike's campaign to, exterminate expectorating in our nation's favorite pastime. That's the caption underneath it. And I know that would be successful just based on some of the feedback we've gotten from the digital publication.
Definitely. I mean, in all honesty, it wouldn't be that hard. Since you are set up on Amazon anyway, it shouldn't be that hard to set up on the print version.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, at that point, it's just basically, instead of just going PDF only, you ask them to do a print version as well.
Oh yeah, and the print version will have, so if it's 25 of the best and 25 of the least favorite, there'll be 50 comics in there. There'll be a lot of commentary, and it'll be an entertaining book. But the only thing I would need to do is just take out the hyperlinks. That wouldn't be difficult to do. And some of these books, since I've been doing them for a few years, is that I had version 1, I had version 2, version 3. This will be version 4, and I'm sure every time that I've done a new version, which has been once a year or a little bit longer, I always fine-tune the books. I always make them tighter. I always think of something wittier, funnier, more poignant to say. So it would be a good exercise for me.
When it comes to the blogs, they're just pretty much straight text as opposed to the illustrations?
I always add an illustration if I can.
Okay, I mean, but the main part of the blog is they pretty much are text.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you thought about taking the blogs and actually printing them as a separate book by themselves?
I did, and I didn't see a lot of as much success in that I wanted. But a lot of the blogs are actually chapters out of the book, because I do a Throwback Thursday blog, and because Mike is a vintage-looking character. You can see when you look at him, he's more vintage-looking than modern. And Throwback Thursday fits in perfectly with a blog. And I'll write about like the number one most downloaded or read blog that I had was Murderer's Row, and it was the 1927 New York Yankees. And I did it on a Throwback Thursday because it's a vintage blog, and it's about a vintage team, like the greatest baseball team supposedly ever. And there are certain sports holidays. Since I've been doing this for a couple of years, I take the easy route. I just change the date and upgrade it from 2019 to 2020, like on February 20th, when they celebrated the United States Miracle on Ice victory over the USSR. I think it was the 40th year celebration. I've used that a couple times, and I'm very frank. I just say, hey, worked last year. People loved it. You want to relive the memory. Here's the comic. Here's some quotes from the players, and that's easy. It's an easy day's work. It takes 30 minutes to do, if that. But I've had success in doing that.
Like I said, you've got a lot of really cool stuff going on. It'd be interesting to see if there's a way to basically make it explode a little bit better.
Well, that's the goal, and you've given me some good ideas, so I'm going to look into these things. Thank you.
No problem. Like you said, marketing is part of what this is. And it'd be interesting to see if they have the equivalent of an artist alley at one of those sports conferences.
They don't. That's the whole thing. I thought I had mentioned that probably less than a year ago. I went to this thing called the Hashtag Sports Conference in New York City, and they have all kinds of people that like exhibit there or speak there, and they do have some creative types, but the creatives are really about the podcast you have or the new app that you want to put together, but not necessarily people that would fall in my bailiwick.
Yeah, you'd be surprised that some of the stuff that you expect to see, but they don't really have. So.
Yes, exactly.
So, all right. I guess Miles do about 2 seconds because you did mention it. When it comes to volunteer basketball, how much of an experience has that been?
that has been an integral part of my life for the last 10 years. I tell people I have the world's greatest volunteer gig, and I help recruit players and organize teams to take them to international masters age basketball tournaments around the world. And the ages start at 35 and they go up to 75. But the sweet spot is really the 45 to 60-year-olds, where people are still really competitive. We've had former NBA players. Almost everybody played in college, for men and women. And like within the last couple of years, I played in the World Championship in Finland. There were 300 teams last August. I played in Brazil, Japan, Czech Republic, Italy, Greece, Ukraine, Moldova, England, Ireland, play all over the world. And the beauty is, because of what I do with Mike, I could do that wherever I had a scratch pad and access to the internet. So it's not as if I have to be shackled to a desk back here in Florida where I live to be able to do my work. And a lot of times when I go to these tournaments, I get an inspiration, for future blogs or comics or books.
It would definitely be hard not to see that happening.
Oh yeah, the organization that I serve as the volunteer for, it's called FIMBA, Federation International Masters Basketball Association, and they have chapters in 47 countries around the world. And here in the United States, normally when we go to a tournament, we'll have anywhere from maybe a half dozen to a dozen teams that we take. And it's a ongoing process. I mean, 12 months of the year, I say I'm working on it. I'm really not working on it because it's something that I do and I enjoy, and it's very natural for me to do this, and it's something that I'm passionate about.
Just ignore the parakeet.
Hey, I like that. I was wondering what that was. I thought it was me for a second.
No, it's fun. She's molting right now, so I'm like, yay.
Okay.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what's the perception of basketball internationally? I mean, it's just not one of the sports you tend to think of other countries playing.
I would say it's huge. And I said it's a lot more positive than you would think. I would say in some countries, soccer or international football is still king. It dominates. But then you go to countries like Serbia or Brazil, or England or Slovenia, or Croatia, and basketball is the number one sport. It's huge, especially in Serbia. I go to Serbia every November, to play in an international tournament, and the commitment to basketball there and the interest level, it dwarfs anything that I've ever seen in the United States. That is their national sport, and they're very good at it. I mean, you can see, they have a number of players in the NBA. I think they finished second in the world in the last World Championship. They're terrific. They're passionate about the sport, and it's wonderful to go there and to be a part of it.
Yeah, the obligatory here is Sacramento Kings. I know nothing about Serbian players.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Well, Vlade Divac is your GM, right? And then Bojan Bojanovic is one of your guards. Coincidentally, as far as the Sacramento Kings are concerned, I went to high school with Joey Maloof, one of the former owners of the Kings. Yeah, he was a good athlete. He was a basketball, baseball, and football player in high school.
Yeah, it's just like you said. I know there's a lot of countries that play basketball. It's just, and it's not exactly the most difficult sport to set up. And all you need is some sort of hoop. But it's just not one of the sports you tend to think of as one of our major imports is all.
Yeah, football is still number one. It's like over 35%. Then baseball is about 20% of the overall sports pie in America. Basketball is climbing. I think it's like 13 or 14%, followed by soccer, then hockey. Then I think boxing is number 6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, purposely dwelling on it, it's just you're starting to see a lot of American. It's just not one of those few American exports you just don't hear a lot about unless you actually know where to look.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of Americans that play overseas, especially in Europe and some in South America, and they get paid pretty good money to play abroad. And you have basketball in China, which is growing. I mean, hence the popularity of the late Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. And where else? The Philippines is big in basketball. I think South Korea is getting bigger. It's popular in Japan. So it's a global sport. There's no doubt about that. Well, just to put things in perspective, I mean, I played in a world championship in Italy in 2017. They had 367 teams from 51 countries that were playing, and they call it senior. And a lot of people think, oh, senior, that must be a bunch of 80-year-olds. But the senior designation starts at age 35 for men and 30 for women. So to have, over 5,000 participants, spend all that money and travel all that distance to play in a tournament, I thought it was very impressive.
Definitely. I mean, it's that's just sort of like amazing.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. But hey, this has been a great conversation. Thank you, James, for having me a part of your show. No, just a big thank you. And if the listeners want to take a closer look at Mike, it's themike.com, TheeMike.com, themike.com.
All right, and like I said, we've covered. You got pretty much a lot of stuff on Amazon as far as the books go, and you've also got a Facebook page, and it's on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you. All right. Take care, bud. Bye-bye.
This episode of Webcomics Reviews and Interviews is brought to you by Podfaves.com. You love podcasts, but it's hard finding that next bingeable show. Podfaves has taken out the guesswork by easily identifying the best podcasts out there, so you can spend less time searching and more time listening. That's PODFAVS.com. And that's our show. For those interested in supporting the show, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/twosparrows, TWO. It features minicasts, the next episode, and unedited interviews, and I'm working on transcripts of the various shows. We also have an Alexis app offering 2-minute minicasts offering writing and business tips, as well as affirmations to keep you writing. We also have curated playlists on YouTube, with all the shows broken down to different playlists based on topic. It also includes a good part of available minicasts, as well as the Alexis briefs. So please support our Patreon page, download the Alexis app, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and please talk to us on Facebook. Thank you, and have a great day.